I feel like I'm getting toyed with. All right.
Cool.
And we're back.
Coaching.
Richard, we introduced him for the last episode and then didn't talk coaching.
Right.
We're here now.
We're here to talk about coaching.
Where are we going with coaching today?
Well, we had a conversation last time. Was it?
How do people start coaching? I think
right. How did we get to that?
We start missing steps in coaching.
Right, yeah.
So there's I always have my hierarchy of coaching and you know, it's my approach to philosophy. I think the top tier system, like the structure of coaching should always be that you care about the person you're working with. It's not about making money or selling protein powders or getting sponsorships in whatever kind of free shit you might get.
There's always some.
Right?
Yeah.
But so I think like that to me, that's why I got into coaching. I think that's why you got into coaching. I can always tell a really good coach, not by certifications, not by the technical terms and the knowing the small, Uppus dorsimus and the Prius latissimus and so on and so forth, but being able to actually connect to people. And so I think that was our conversation where you see very technical sound coaches that just follow the checklist of what people need to do to train. And then you see coaches that are extremely passionate. I think that's where I came in, where I didn't know much. I mean, I knew from my experiences of training, but more than anything, I get fucking passionate about seeing people move and make progress. And so I think that's kind of where we started talking about what does it take to be a good coach? And I think that the starting line is always for me going to be the passion of helping people. And then from there, it's like, okay, so then how do you take this passion and this, minimal knowledge that you may have about training, and how do you start to apply it to leading a class? And it's a lot more than just
leading,
being,
right?
Yeah. So it's a lot more than just being an athlete or wanting to you like being at the gym. So therefore I'll become a coach. That way I can be there all the time. And so that's kind of where we started to have that conversation of how do you become a leader in this space of your gym or online presence, whatever.
And I think that's the first thing we saw in new coaches is that incapacity to lead a group.
Yeah.
Because that means leadership means making a cohesive, taking a mob and making into a, like
a
so,
union.
It's that too. Like
Wait, mob did make the union, right? Yeah.
But it's true because if you have a bunch of individuals that are not connected and everything, then you have a bunch of groups here, bunch of there, then that turns into chaos a lot of time. I think a good coach first will have to learn on how to deal with a group, like how to lead a group, like creating a uniting force for everybody. Even if you don't know, it's like fake it till you make it. At least look like you do, so that you can take a group and lead it from A to B. It sounds like, no. We've seen it with a lot of coaches that they actually like that. And I think that's the first skill you should gain.
Yeah. Well, leadership is it's less about being right as often as possible than people think. And I think that's a piece people get into when they get early in coaching is they lack that confidence, which means then they kind of suck as leaders, because they think, I don't know enough, I'm new.
Right.
And very often, like leading and coaching is, we've talked about it so many times, is like, listen, if they trust you, it's like start with trust. Like if they can trust you, you can lead a group and know that if you don't know everything, that you'll find it out. And then that's the nature of the relationship. But so many people either come in and they want to go hard leadership and they hard sell the leadership without knowing any of the stuff, and then it kind of dries up because they're stubborn.
Right. No reason. I think they try to prove that they're right.
Yeah.
And
not proving that you're willing to figure out what's right.
Right. And you can, by the way, you do feel challenged, because sometimes people do challenge you. Yeah. They're in the gym and they go, well, what about this? What about that? But you see the new coaches.
This guy named Julian on YouTube, and
And we had a conversation with the L1s, like the guys at CrossFit L1 saying, I'm tired of talking about your shit for 15 minutes at every seminar. Yeah. Like, well, sorry. But at the same time, if I'm I'm coaching a group of people and I feel I'm being not ask a question, but question, that can be make you feel very uncomfortable as a coach, and that challenge is not always well perceived. But you have to understand that within a group, it's going to happen, and the key is to take that person and make him move with the group and going. If you start spending too much time proving that you're right, then you separate, like you break down the group unit, like you start to split people, and then you're still spending a lot of time on that guy who's still not going to listen anyway. And now you've lost the group. I think it's very important for coaches to understand the attributes of leadership and being able to move people, even on one-on-ones. If you start to establish to the guy that you're right, you lost the trust. That's not, if it's a confrontation, it doesn't work like that. You're trying to take them through an experience first, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want to spend a bunch of energy on bad eggs because you're just going to create more bad eggs.
Right, and it's not
just get
that.
It on
yeah,
and move
this
on.
is not the place.
Yeah, you're never going to convince that person.
Exactly.
Not in front of 20 people either.
Right, exactly.
By the way, have you ever tried to convince someone to change their mind in front of people?
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of times.
Yes. By the way,
did it work?
By the way, I'm speaking to the wrong people.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, we've all been there where you're like in a group class
Yes.
and they're like, yeah, they're not going to do this. And you guys like, oh, they're going to fucking do this. You know,
but even at seminar, when I start to go, okay, well, let me prove you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it never leads anywhere. I'm there an hour later, and now I'm hearing like dumber and dumber arguments by the second because they just won't admit that they were wrong in the first place.
And I think the important thing in that is then when you do that, you have all the other people who are there for your leadership or for your coaching,
and they back
that
off.
then are like, well, what the fuck is this being taken away from them?
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
So I think being where you put your energy really, really, really matters.
Right. So ego at the door, right? It's not about proving that you're right. It's about leading the group. And I think that's a very important distinction.
Yeah. And I think the biggest part is like, how long does it take to be a good leader? Like people are getting these weekend seminars and opening up gyms, or, you know, they go through even if you go through, and let's say you get your college degree in sports sciences and things like that, like at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, you're still having to work with people and you need to have that experience. It's like, it's great having the theoretical side of it, but if you don't have that practical application, I don't want to be rude, but most of these adults coming into your class, it's like dealing with cats and little kids and
Herding
chickens.
cats, totally.
And you're just like, guys, seriously, like what's going on? So for me, like when I had my gym, it's like I knew I had my 9 a.m. class. I knew exactly what it was going to be. We need to talk about our weird, vivid dreams that our soccer moms are having, and we're going to be chit-chatting. Yep. But when the workout comes, guys, like, let's get to it. And the ladies knew exactly what was going to happen.
But it's very important to do that.
Yeah, so you always have to understand who you're working with and how to lead that group.
Yeah.
Because everybody that has a functional fitness gym or does group classes, especially if you do them throughout the day, you know your AM classes, like your early morning businessmen, your 9 a.m. soccer moms, and then your evening classes are all totally different.
Yeah.
And each one, and you need to be able to adapt and lead each one its own way. You cannot be.
You have to get good at that, reading people and leading that class that is not the same thing. But talking about group classes, I don't care if you do one-on-ones. I think learning to lead a group class is a skill you should gain.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also a huge part of. I mean, you can do one-on-ones, great, but when you talk about everything else in the business, being able to lead a group class. If you want to be a community leader, you want to be able to sell memberships, which does matter. Yeah. You should be able to approach a slightly cold group, because Richard coming in with a scheduled appointment to me is knowing he's going to come in and talk to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're going up to a group of 10, 15 people is a different thing, and it is much more like coming in, a stranger or a husband, wife, family coming into your gym, asking about. That's a skill. It's one of those skills that you need to have to carry over to kind of every part.
But you get that skill by doing group classes. Exactly. So even if you do one-on-ones, and God knows this is mostly what I've done, I still urge you to go learn to deal with group classes. Because that's actually how I started, me with a warm-up at my jiu-jitsu school. I started with groups, and you don't get to be as specific as on one-on-one, obviously, but that's also part of the skill. It's important also to understand that 80% is still good, because that's a group class. You're not going to be 100% because too many different people, but 80% is still good, and it's a lot better than 70%. You know, it's working with those difficult situations and not getting what you want, but still leading the group. And, you know, it's like the losses in the military. You're going to have to deal with that. It's a little bit that too, dealing with losses as a coach. But that's a hard one too, by the way.
Yeah. I think also with the group class stuff is like knowing what to like manage and what to let go is really important.
Letting go.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. But by the way, speaking of that, if you can look at yourself a year ago and not cringe as who you were as a coach, you have not worked on yourself enough anyway. Yeah. Like if I taught the deadlift wrong for 15 years, until internal torque came back, and I text Richard and I, oh my God, you got to try this. Up to that stage, I realized I taught the deadlift wrong because I didn't teach, I taught position and not tension. So that means I had to go to all of my clients and say, right, remember what I told you? Yeah, it wasn't that good. And by the way, they all went, oh, okay, cool. So now you know better. And let's work on it. And they were all very accepting of that fact because they knew I cared so much. And then that literally at the time was doing my best.
Yeah. I think once you start to feeling like you have to defend your rightness, you've created an environment with which now that is all you're going to have to do.
Yeah. And plus you cannot progress.
You create room for questions.
And you cannot progress because guess what? You're not right. You're going to discover a year from now that what you do today is most likely partly wrong.
Yeah. And I feel like if you're having to defend it that hard, it's most likely because you don't know it well enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because for me, it's like, okay, rather than just arguing about it, I'm like, okay, so let's go try it out. And I know exactly what, like where we need to go. And then they go, now I see what you mean. And then it's simple. Because if you know it well enough, you can explain it in a very simple way for people to adapt to it, right? And when we're talking about leading a class, you have people that, I'm sorry, they don't want to spend 10 hours in the gym trying to figure out what they want to do. Yeah. They want to go in for 1 hour, have a good time, be able to forget their shit that's going on the outside, be able to be present, have a fun community where they can kind of push each other. And so that's where you need to learn to explain things as simple as possible.
Because there are those people as well. And if that, by the way, and if that's what they want, no, you don't get to explain lactate.
No.
Yeah. God knows I love this.
Coach.
You know me by now.
Coach using those principles. You don't need to teach that stuff to the average person. Christ.
And a lot of them...
They got a lot of other shit to worry about.
No, but I see a lot of coaches are getting frustrated, for example, with people that seem to care less about their own health than they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's all of us as coaches where we start losing our mind. But the fact is, they need to be, those people need to be taken care of as well. But you have to understand that you cannot force that on them. If they don't ask for help, you can't, you cannot give it. So,
and even in that case though, so like I always looked at it, and I look at it from my own experiences because I always say I can share my experiences because I mess up a lot more.
Yeah.
I like to learn the hard way.
I made no mistakes. Yep.
But as I start to get better, it might not seem like when I see clients and they do the smallest progression, for me, that's still a huge progression because for them is massive. Even though, the breathing isn't there or this isn't happening, but there's the progress for them that feels to you like it's 2 millimeters. For them, it could be a kilometer.
Yeah.
So you can't
judge by
you can't bring your ego into what they're doing because what they're doing could be huge, and then you're just kind of blowing on their shit and going, because that was okay, but I want you to be here. It's like, no, it takes a long time for people to get there. And you have to understand, especially during group classes, like I used to always have the people of like, hey, she's cheating her reps. And I was like, well, she's trying to keep up with you. But is she sweating? And is she dying on the floor at the end of the workout? Yes.
Then who cares?
So who cares? Yeah. They all worked out the same. Like, why does the reps even matter anymore? Like, can we move past this?
Yes.
And so, or they're not getting low enough. I was like, but maybe that's all they can do. Again,
maybe that's all they should do.
Yeah, like this is the stimulus that I want out of it. And let's figure out how to get there first. Like, who cares about the objective of the range of motion and the good rep or bad rep? The good rep is they're feeling the right muscles and they're dying at the end of the workout. And you know what I mean?
I think as a coach, there's a lot you have to work on yourself to become a better coach. That is not relating to knowledge or stuff like that. Timeline is one. Yeah. Like chances are it's going to take a lot longer for your people to progress than you think, because guess what? They're just not that talented. Yeah. We were at the track the other day and we saw athletes that are basically either national or world-class level with massive imbalances, stuff that would cripple you. But guess what? It doesn't cripple them.
They're still running really fast.
Exactly. Even though they should be crippled, and they kind of are, but they still run. Like we had one athlete, so she's world-class level. She's coming back from a baby, and she ran a bad 200 meters in 24 seconds flat. And I was like, that's a bad 200 meters. Sure. But it was for her. But she has no obliques. We need to get the pecs going, the lats, the psoas. There's so much we need to. We're gonna make her better really fast. So you're gonna see us at the Worlds screaming at exactly for StrongFit.
The gifted ones adapt so well.
But the thing is, she's that good. Yeah. That's the difference, right? So by the way, as a coach, if I'm looking at a girl, that's the conversation about being a black belt that John Machado has with you. He said, no, you're a brown belt because you're not your black belt. You can tap all those black belts, but that doesn't make you a black belt because compared to my potential, I was a brown belt, not a black belt, right? So her, for example, is there stuff to fix? So much. Yeah. But guess what? She's still world class. So imagine where she could go. But as a coach, I'm not going to go like, oh, she runs 24/7, everything is cool. No, she has progress to make. Let me take you there. But that requires me taking out my ego because she'll make progress really fast. But I have another client who's not talented who to get a 10th of that progress, she's going to require 5 times longer.
No.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. This is her. This is you. You are there. You're not that talented. It's going to take longer and everything. But it's not my place to judge that. It's not my place to be frustrated by the fact that you don't progress as fast as that person. Right. What should be the name of my game is progress. Yeah, if you make progress, it doesn't matter. You're making progress. You're lapping everybody else on the couch, by the way.
Yeah. The pace of progress is almost impossible.
It's not up to you.
It's impossible to even try to project.
It's not up to you.
Just let it be moving. If things are moving forward, you're winning.
Right. That's all.
And because the whole system has to adapt around it. Like, you can't even take some of these elite athletes if the, let's say, primary dysfunction is a psoas issue and make them a psoas master. Yeah. Because if that progresses, exactly. But if that progresses, everything else is
going to shift
to adapt.
You're going to kill them.
And so you kind of do need to progress them. So it might be psoas here, a little this, and we're just going to make progress.
And by the way, psoas master would, in most times, would mean making them the master of an exercise, which is not a psoas master. Yeah. Because you're going to make them work on exercise and they're going to work everything else but the psoas anyway. And so they're going to be the master of leg raises, but still, I have a hole in my sock, as you can tell. I need new socks. So send them at this address. Click there.
My mom sent socks. It took 10 weeks. So send it from Europe, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. and those won't last 10 weeks. Most of the time when I'll see people doing an exercise and becoming master of an exercise, but but that exercise is still not fixing
what you need,
because you still need to work on the psoas, and which you haven't done because you work on everything else. And even if you work on the psoas, it still has to translate to your fucking sprint.
That's like, and this is like practical approach, right? Yep. Software versus hardware. As a coach, I'm always looking when I'm working with a client. Do I need to upgrade the hardware or the software? And then there needs to be a balance between those two. And then so like right now, like with Tyrone, the fighter, you guys will get to see some videos coming up. He has a fight coming up, but I can't get his hardware too high up because right now it's a software issue. So he's very good at finding the game and then he'll just play out the game. Yeah. So I need him to actually be able to upgrade that software. So it's not, there needs to be constant challenge, right? And it's like, that's what we're seeing with Janina too. Like I'm working with Janina and I'm seeing her and she's very good at sprinting mechanically, but she's not enjoying the run. So every time that I work with her, it's, hey, Janina, come on, come over here. It just find the joy. Go dance. Go find this. And so it's more of a software upgrade that I'm working with her because her hardware's there.
But she became a master of drilling. Yeah, I was watching. It was very interesting. Not a master of sprinting, master of drilling. That woman has potential.
Yeah, so
because she's running 11.8 right now, but up and down instead of forward. Right. And as a master, she runs with her feet and not her glutes because she's a master of drilling and not a master of sprinting yet.
Yeah. Right.
So we see that a lot with the athletes. And so Richard is in charge of Janina now. And then she is going to start with the psoas. Why? Because there's stuff that she has learned to do through drilling that are actually sprinting based.
Right.
It's just drill based. So that's doing an exercise for the sake of the exercise instead of remembering that you're doing that exercise to benefit something else.
Right.
Right. And so progress, like all that stuff, it takes...
It's like the same thing with people doing like the drills on the weightlifting.
Yes,
but then they do the lift and then it's not
applicable,
thing. And you're like, of course it's not going to be applicable, so there needs to be...
Well, at some point he has to transition, right? You see that with fighters, like you do katas, but you can't punch a guy. Yeah. And I'm like, then what is the kata for? It was supposed to make you better at punching.
No.
But now, like, you shadow box and you look awesome.
Pretending to punch.
Right. You shadow box and you look awesome. You look like a badass in the gym, but you can't fucking punch a dude. Then
wasn't that where the measurement became the objective?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think that
measurement became a target. Exactly.
I think that that's a really good concept where you described where the exercise needs to be about what it needs to be about, not just the exercise.
Just grab your shirt.
Am I shining?
It's bugging me a little bit.
Am I shining?
Yeah, I'm just seeing like the bead.
The bead. Listen, my life has been 2 years of
corn starch.
It's been 2 years of chronicling my male pattern baldness. I watch old episodes and I was like, why did I even keep that much hair? It's all fucked up.
It's patches
it's
and
kind of embarrassing looking back.
I gave up on this as well because it's getting thinner here, so I'm like, fuck it.
But I think it's interesting when you talked about like your group fitness people trying to push too much progress on them too fast. You got to remember what they're there to do. And some of them come in, it's like, you know what? Some of these people, I'm here to be a good sprinter. Some people are coming in, I'm trying to lose a little weight, feel better, move better, have a little less pain. Right. Well, at that point, do we need to narrow everything down and go, I need you to find your fucking hamstring, and you got to find it today. And all that, that level of specificity, we do need to create an environment where there's just, give them some work. When you talk about a group class, work, social environment that's fun, and an opportunity to find it and some guidance.
And
they cannot make that this hard.
Because there's 2 points to that. First of all, the first one is progress. Yeah. If you hammer them too much, they can't progress. Yeah. It's not what you do, it's what you recover from. So that's an important part. And second of all, is it up to us to judge why they come into the gym? Now, don't get me wrong. I want them to go past the six-pack.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see people fucking themselves up just to lose weight and stuff like that. But when they come in the gym, they might have a first approach to it that I should not be judging because they just don't know yet. Mm-hmm. They don't know any better. They haven't been taught. So that's going to require patience from you. Like we had a talk about a coach, like we talked about yesterday, where he made so much progress as a human being in the last year and a half. So at the time, we had doubts because the guy was going a certain way. We were like, but you saw the progress as a human being where he has the right values now. But if I had been an asshole then going like, well, I don't like your values. Yeah, but people change. Yeah. So that's always the fine line too, is I don't want to train people for six packs, but if it gets them through the door, I have to give them enough wins to get them going. Yeah. That's the hard part of coaching to me, is I know where I want them to be. But do I get to judge where they are right now? That's always the hardest question for me. Where you know what I mean?
Which I think that's, I mean, so then it's a matter of like how much time do you give somebody to change.
Exactly, but that's why this is hard. That's why it's a hard job.
Some people are just also, by the time they show up with whatever goals that might be misguided, right? A little bit or whatever.
And many are.
But you have to understand as a coach and as a leader that at that moment, sometimes for those people, that's the first moment that they're making a choice to take care of themselves physically.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it. Like, oh, I'm here. Fuck. And then, so to blow them up about progress for things that they've never even considered that matters, it's hard. True. So you got to give them the whole, you got to be there for the whole person.
Well, and I think, not like the business model now for the group classes is you have people that are coming in. Like we were in Mexico going to a gym and they get so many drop-ins because it's in Cabo, right? So the coaches there, you can tell we're just going to basically manage the class to get you going through because they have people coming in from all over and most of the people are coming and going, oh, well,
that's a tough spot to
be in. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that is...
Cabo.
No, but
Cabo is okay.
That holiday drop-in box, that's got to be so hard to do. Because then the local members are like, well, where's my attention? And you know what I mean? So you start to have that pull. So I understand where you have different areas of group coaching and being able to become a leader. But that's where, I mean, again, caring about what you're doing, first of all. Yeah. And second of all, being able, if you're a coach, and, you know, I think that this is where I want to come in and redefine how people view coaches in the fitness industry. But even as a class coach, you should be able to say certain things that person can then go, huh. Like I remember, I mean, like Chris Beeler, he's a great coach. And I remember that one of my clients went to Park City and she dropped in at the box, and being a drop-in, and she still came back going, hey, he told me to do this and he told me to try this. And I was like, wow, like even I learned from his coaching of another client, which I think that's the whole point. Like the whole point when somebody walks in, and you say this all the time, when they leave, they should be feeling better than when they walked in. And so if we're doing that as a coach through group classes can still be done. It just takes the point of you caring about the person and you understanding what you're coaching. not just managing and ticking the boxes that you did the Bergner warm-up and you went through the 10 steps of mobility and you did this and then they did the workout.
Honestly, sometimes you're too stuck up.
Yeah.
On your own, you believe your own legend.
Or you're
like
starting to get
this coach or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, but like, for example, me, at some point, it would be necessary for me to spend 3 months at that box in Cabo and coach those people in the sense of I'm starting to get far too specialized into what I do and far too, if you don't understand this, fuck you.
Right.
Because that's what I do, but that's because I enjoy it and I'm like, if you can't follow me, that's your problem, which is true to a degree, by the way. Just get smarter. Yeah. But at some point, I'm going to have to check my own ego and go teach people that get here just to fucking sweat. Because it would bring me down a little bit on the point of fitness. I forget sometimes that, and I think Socrates even said it, like, like it doesn't, but Aristotle, well, anyway, that it doesn't matter what progress is made. Like the length, the size of progress doesn't matter as long as progress is made. And I think all of us on a regular basis, we need to check our ego at the door and check ourselves on that before we wreck ourselves. As to like, if they make progress, if they live better than when they walked in, then that's the job. Yeah. The job is not good. The job is better. Right. I mean, and more is not better. Better is better. Like, because I'm sure some people still. I've been saying that for a long time. Yeah. Yes, and I've been saying it anyway. If you get to the point where you steal my words too, like, come on. Anyway, is realizing that if people do better, that's the job. It's not good, because good is a target. Yeah. It's an objective. The point is better. I have to remind myself that all the time. So I'm sure some of you out there have exactly the same frustration I have, but I think it's also on us. And sometimes it's on the clients too, let's be honest. Like some of them, sometimes you go, Jesus Christ, man. But it's on us as well to, I don't know if it's patience, I don't know if it's humility, I don't know what it is, but as a coach, you need to work on the fact that if they made progress, dude, you're good. Yeah. It's awesome. Your people are making progress. And by the way, this is the only way to look at it so you don't burn out. If you start to go toward, I want good for my people, you will burn out because you will be disappointed and you move your goalpost anyway. The good becomes further and further. You're killing yourself. Like you have to understand the job is better, not good.
And it's the same thing that you need to go with for your clients as well, because they start going, oh, I want this.
They do that too. Yeah, they do that too.
I have never seen someone look in the mirror after losing some weight and go, you know what? I'm as lean as I ever want to be.
I'm awesome. Thank you.
That is never happened.
Well, and maybe you get there, but then eventually,
a week later, you're like, I want another 10 now. Yeah, because you've seen on Instagram that person or this person. Yeah.
And I think it's important. Like the things you guys had mentioned very often is, it's not just the things you say, and we fall into this trap of trying to speak information or trying to defend our stance or why we're teaching things a certain way or anything. Right. And the fact is, people will not. This is probably a fucking cat poster saying or some shit, but hang in there. Was the Land of the Lost one? It's your own damn fault. That one, but
hang in there was the Wanted. Remember, was
Wanted.
But it's that you is that people aren't going to remember what you said in the end. They're going to remember how they made you feel.
Like your kids.
And how they made you feel. And so and this was a thing that I'd used in sales training, I'd used in just regular customer service training, stuff like that, is if you can, like the silly shit. I had to communicate very little information to a client as a technician, because when you would start telling them that stuff, they go, I don't know what any of that is. There's no context. Right. So my job is to be perceived as nice, trustworthy, and as a person who knows what they're talking about.
Part of it.
And you cannot convince people that you know what you're talking about by talking about it more. So if you're nice and you're trustworthy and you're at least to the point and you believe in it, that's all it takes. And then that person, as soon as I opened the door, this guy was smiling. He shook my hand and he went and he took his shoes off right away. Those are those little steps where that made a person feel comfortable.
And I think that's a very good point, because I think as a coaching should be seen as that for us coaches, the art of coaching should be, you should take probably a sales class. Yeah. Stuff like that. I know, like you
not
most
for
of
selling,
you out there, not for selling,
for learning
not for
what
selling.
Really sits underneath that.
For learning people.
Yeah.
Like you should, ongoing education, you should learn psychology. Yeah. You should learn you should go to a sales class. And again, not to sell, to understand the psychology of selling, because that'll teach you how to motivate people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Coaching is more than just knowing the movement and making them achieve positions. Tension over position means understanding people. Psychology is part of it. The psychology of selling in the sense of the psychology of motivating people, inspiring them, what works, what doesn't. All that comes part of the coach. So sometimes we are frustrated about our own coaching because we are lacking the knowledge necessary to get people to do what we want.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but that's on us as well.
Comes because the fitness industry is fueled with the fitness industry.
Yes.
So there's nobody goes outside the fitness industry to become better.
Yes. Yes. Then we do not learn from anybody else.
You get stuck in the same thing.
There's education stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like right now we're going through online education training because turns out online education is not on-site education, which I've only done on-site education my entire life. And now we're doing online education. Turns out shit doesn't work the same. You know why? Because you can't do a 2-hour video online, which we have to change now. Because every 30 seconds, because like when we do stuff on Facebook, every 30 seconds you get the fucking like notification
unless production value is really high.
Very, very high. Fortunately, we're not quite there. We're going to work, but we're not there yet.
We'll get our X-Men movie full length.
Exactly. But even that, I bet you if it's on the computer, people, when they see a Facebook notification, they still switch and come back.
Right.
It's like in today's world, it's so hard. Anyway, that's part of the skill of online education. Well, guess what? We have to learn it because if you don't, you do what I did, which is the online seminar that people have the hardest time to follow because it's not in a format that promotes learning. So whose fault is that? The person watching the seminar not paying enough attention, which is who I blame at first, or is it my fault for not learning how to do the shit correctly?
And I'll say the answer is both. But the fact
the answer is it's your fault.
But the fact is, both of you are in this situation.
We are in it together.
We can't blame each other and have it work.
Yes, we're in it together. But guess where we're going to learn this?
No.
Not from the fitness industry. No. Outside of it. No. That's what the podcast with the tattoo guy. Like I learn from those people. We have to learn from outside.
Like a lot of the people that are selling the fitness thing aren't successful at their fitness thing. So they're doing the selling of the fitness thing. Because they're not successful as a fitness thing.
You're better at selling the fitness thing than you are at the fitness.
So now we have fitness people that can't sell shit or people that sell stuff but are not from fitness people.
Yeah.
And like we need to do better. But again, you know how we win this? By having the fitness people, the true coaches, passionate and all that stuff, to understand how to sell the shit. Yeah. If we keep going like this, where good coaches are incapable to run businesses, guess who's going to stay? Yeah. The good business people that don't know shit about coaching. Yeah. So it's on us also to change this. And I'm one of them. I have to learn business. I have Amy, actually mentoring us for business so that we can do a better job on our side, because otherwise we're going to get run over by people that don't have our ethics and only care about selling. Yeah. Is that who you want out there? No, of course it's not. So, but it's also on me as the head of StrongFit to do better at business. And it took me a while. Because I don't like it.
Well,
I don't.
I
still have to get good at it.
That idea of going outside of the industry is I think extremely important. And we see this all the time with, say, every issue. We talk about a fundamental truth that should apply in everything. Issues with movement. Someone squats, the knees cave in. Telling them the knees need to go out. Does that really fix it in the end? Not really. We're only focusing on the problem, and it very rarely doesn't work. I told you guys this story. I'm going to tell them. Charles Barkley's golf swing is fucking hilarious. If you watched it, it is the weirdest thing, and it is never about the golf swing, because it was normal until it just kind of became this hitch. Look it up if you need to see it.
Watch it.
It's so funny. He almost falls over and then does it, and he golfs a lot. And he golfs a lot, and it's insane. It's unjustifiable from a golf standpoint, from anything. And he had paid all sorts of people for 20 some years to remedy this, and the guy who fixed it finally, this is recently in the last couple of years, the solution was never to address his golf swing, or it's never even to just go, you have some mental block there. It's like, all right, let's just try something different. Let's give you something else to fucking worry about with your golf.
Exactly.
Which was, they basically just had him grip as a left-hander, golfing right-handed with a left-hand grip, which was just that occupied enough of his attention. They didn't have to worry about the problem or the pause.
Novelty search.
Do this, and then boom.
Yeah, because you have to focus so hard doing this shit. Like, how do I do this?
That would be weird.
Yeah, how do I do this? And that's exactly. So now you have to worry about this instead of. Yeah.
And they call it the yips normally when you're putting is that like you just high stakes, it matters, maybe it's easy, and you just fuck it up, right? But having that on a swing that doesn't matter is crazy normally. Like you never really see it like that, especially the habituation of it. So I just thought that was a really interesting and novel approach that applies to everything.
Novelty search.
Like if we only look at the knees caving in, we're only going to create more of the knees caving in,
Which is what we see all the time.
We got to zoom out and deal with the whole thing.
Or you'll destroy somebody's hip, making it only knees worse. Out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, knees out. Now you're gonna fuck up the knees that before were not hurting. Or that's
looking at the sprinters. All they do is glute med work.
Yes, it's
because it's called an interior. It's an interior rotator.
No, that's what they say now. But anyway, but back then they didn't like that. But that's because like that one, I blame the physios on that one because all they wanted to see them do is the same shit. Sorry. So, but that's a long conversation I had with physio 3 years ago about internal torque, where they said, no, it's all about the glute med on the sprint. I was like, are you guys insane? Like, look at sprinters. Like, this is a glute major thing. Like, have you ever run in your life? The answer is no, because otherwise it wouldn't be physios. But actually, there's a sprinter like we're gonna talk to. He's a physio as well. So it'll be very interesting to have a conversation with him to see how he sees the sprint and the physio matching. I'm very interested to
I'd like to and based on what we'd heard, it seems like a really sharp and open-minded guy.
Yeah, that's right. He has to be, right?
Seeing the gaps that he sees from an industry to the application of that.
The new generation of physios are actually starting to get really good because they want to look at movement. It's always the same. It's like there's that switch at 30 where like the new generation is really making progress. The older generation of physios I have a really hard time talking to. Like that's that, but not them as individuals. Like the system,
industry.
The industry is money based. Like it's not my favorite industry in the world. I gotta say, there's good people in it as usual, but the industry itself is rough. Anyway, but yeah, there's an entire thing there that has to be worked out. It turns out it's always systems, man. It's looking at things as complex systems. That's the only way out. Like the knees coming in is not just the knees coming in. There's a reason the knees come in. And if you don't understand the reason, you're going to fuck up the person even more. It's a complex system and it has to be treated as such. And the only way to deal with a complex system is inference, based in inference.
I want to have pop a question on each of you two guys before we go. Is if you had, I think we have a lot of new coaches. In my opinion, I think with StrongFit, one of the things that we have is a lot of people who are interested in movement and all of the underlying themes in movement, then find their way to coaching. And so I think there are a lot of people that are fairly new to coaching that are in this space. So I'd like each of you to, if you can give one separate piece of advice, a standalone piece that you would recommend for a new coach coming in. And I'll edit it if you need time.
Do you want me to go first? I think the first things first is understand who you are as a coach, as a person, understand your values, and then understand the experience you want to provide to others. From there, you can grow as far as you want. But if you don't start with who you are, you'll start to modify to what either the industry wants or maybe your boss was looking for. And what really got you into helping people will start to become skewed, and then you'll burn out or you'll get over it. And then I see that all the time.
And you'll burn out.
And they start doing something else.
You'll burn out.
And so like that's been the biggest thing is where you see, I saw it with myself where I used to do bodybuilding and this, even though I was doing CrossFit. And as I got more into the CrossFit world where it's like, I shouldn't be doing accessory work or bodybuilding or cables. And that's when I started to get hurt because I started to skew my own practical application for the theory that other people were saying, and I would follow blindly. So I always say, know who you are first, understand your values, go try the stuff out. When we tell you things, go try them out. I've tried, and that's where I started going like, I'm gonna do things for 10,000 hours until I truly understand what I'm doing. And from there, then I can grow by myself and as a coach and as a person and an athlete and everything else. But I think that's really the biggest thing is understand why you're doing it, who you are, the experience you want, know the values, and always go forward with that.
That's a big one. That's really good.
Mine will be about education then. we all come from a school system where we got pounded into memorizing things because that's just the way it is. Otherwise, you get a bad grade and they judge you as a person. Mm-hmm. Be very careful with that mindset when it comes to the fitness industry. There are a lot of systems out there that are designed to teach you position instead of tension on movement because it's more scalable and easier to sell. That does not make it right. It just makes it easier to sell. Don't get stuck with education on that's the way things are. Like you're gonna have to experiment, as Richard say, a lot with yourself to find out what works, what doesn't, what is true, what isn't. Take everything when it comes to education with a grain of salt. Everything should go through your own experience of it. Yeah. Those are the glasses you should wear, which is your own experience. Don't accept things because there's a name behind it. Like a lot of time, the way the knowledge is being delivered is based on scalability for business, not on truth of the thing itself. Right, yeah. Like this is the world we live in right now, especially in the fitness industry. Take education with a grain of salt. Go try stuff. Don't get stuck in a method ever, right? Learn for yourself. Don't memorize. Learn. There's a really, really big difference between memorizing and learning. Yeah. And you're going to have to know that, to learn that difference.
100%. Well, and that concept that Julian talked about, I think if you follow with the thing Julian talked about, that ends up reinforcing and developing the values and experience you want to offer, like Richard. Absolutely. So those two things feed very well to each other.
It's learning over memorizing. Yeah. That's the key.
And you reinforce your values. Or
you do. 100%.
You do. And then you really are understanding that the information you're getting isn't this ... thing at the end of your name or this certification.
That'll be the difference
now a part of
between progressing and evolving.
Yeah.
Because you keep progressing to fancier things and shinier things that we always talk about, but you're not actually evolving as a coach, as a person, as to how to better educate people. You're just progressing in
your cues.
In your cues, essentially, right? In your cues, or in understanding the theoretical side of the lactate, but then having no practical application because you don't know when the phase changes. You don't understand. You can't read the person, so then you haven't evolved as a coach.
You can't produce any. Yeah. Because you're pacing your work so much, like you see, then you don't understand lactate. Yeah. I mean, like you can't just read it on a piece of paper, like without any practical application on stuff. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Because even like the stuff we were talking about yesterday, I want to come when you talk about that part of on the podcast. About the
well, let's the next one
because that's been basically what I've been wanting to do the last 3 years, and now I can just read people so much faster and connect with them.
Then we can talk about us too. So there's a practical aspect that Richard has been working on so much, and then I'm figuring out the theoretical. So we'll do the next podcast on that.
But that's where people just want me to talk about it and give them the things. I'm like, it's not. I can't just tell you because like we had Harpa here.
The wrong part.
Yeah, we had Harpa here, and she was at the coaches week, and I had her go through the thing, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "When you were talking about it, I thought you were just crazy," and I was like, "Yeah."
Because it's not world based. Yeah, exactly.
So and she actually came and did the work, and she's like, now we can talk about it. Yeah, because now you've actually learned, you've evolved as to who you are, but it takes a lot more than just the words, like you say.
But, all right, guys. But almost by definition, as we'll explain on the next one.
Yeah. So we got exciting things coming up. We got that one. We have surprise guest stuff coming up, some subject matter we'll keep. So we have a big next couple weeks coming up in the podcast. You should be seeing all sorts of new shit coming out soon on this. So stay tuned on Instagram, StrongFit1. Follow Rare Barracuda, Tyler F. and Stone. And we'll see you next time.
Cool. Later, guys.
If you want to support the podcast, head on over to podcast.strongfit.com. There you could donate or join the YouTube channel. Also, go to strongfit.com. There you're going to find our online courses, education, and all of our seminar dates should be there as well. Head on over to strongfitlibrary.com to keep up to date on everything Julian's been working on. And follow StrongFit1 on Instagram and Tyler F. and Stone.